Hello and welcome to Sutro Sidetalk, episode 183. I am your host, Kamron and with me is
James Silic.
we have a nice, easy episode this week. Not going to be as long as last week's, which only hit that hour and a half limit that we talked about. If anyone missed last week, we basically just said new rule is hour and a half cap, three topics maximum, but it doesn't mean we're going to have three topics. It could be 1 to 3, depending on what's going on. News is in the intro now. This week, no news. So shorter intro. And we're not catching up talking about what we've been doing for 3 weeks, because that was the last time we recorded.
Yeah.
So intro is going to be shorter. Episode's going to be shorter. One less topic than last week. It's going to be a fun, nice, easy time. All gaming oriented, though. So for those that haven't listened before, this is Sutro Sidetalk. Each week we talk what we've been playing and watching, as well as select news that, like I said, we're not doing any of this week. What we will talk about is Hi-Fi Rush and a little bit of Valheim. James and I both played Hi-Fi Rush, which is on Xbox, PC, Game Pass, all that stuff. And then Valheim I played with some friends in a server on PC, and just talk about that experience. I honestly don't think I'll be talking about that very long at all. But otherwise, yeah. How is your week going, man? Or how is your week going?
Pretty good. I mean, last week was just super busy at work, just trying to get a bunch of shit done. So I just didn't have a lot of time to do stuff. So I have been mostly chipping away at playing a little bit of PSVR 2 stuff. So far I've been liking it. Only issue is I have been noticing this weird problem with the right controller specifically, where sometimes it doesn't register that I'm touching the trigger buttons, which is a thing it's supposed to do. And apparently this is widespread issues with the right controller specifically, and it seems to be software issues. Hopefully it's not hardware. I really would rather not have to send one of my controllers in to get fixed. But anyway, work has just been busy, so I've been not doing too much, which is why I'm only a few missions into Destiny Lightfall, but chipping away at that too.
Okay. Meanwhile, I took out the entirety of Lightfall Legendary. I went solo, and I did it in the first day it came out.
Yeah, I can't believe you actually finished it in a day.
It took the whole day. There were parts I kept getting stuck on. I was getting annoying at certain levels where I died too many times to count, to say the least. I actually ran a whole loadout the entire time, the same loadout, and somehow made it through on Legend. And it was just Ostringer, and I forget what I think it's Hollowed Path, the Void trace rifle that you get from Season of the Haunted. And I think it was Galhorn. I just used Galhorn. And then at a certain point, it was until the boss level that I actually finally changed my weapons. But otherwise, the entire time, I was just yeah, I'll just use this. And I want to say halfway through, up the first half, I just used whatever I got, whatever the armor was. I didn't even care. I was oh, this is fine. And it was awful because, I don't have any good stats. I'm not trying to go for anything. So I'm just surviving, but going through still. And then there was a certain point I was just okay, I'm gonna have to try now, and started infusing things. And I started swallowing up upgrade modules no tomorrow. But yeah, we'll be talking about Destiny soon enough, either in 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, depending on what's going on. Because at the end of the month, I'm going to a bachelor party in Atlanta, and I might be gone a second week after that, depending on what goes on. I might be in Orlando too for a bit, but we'll see what's going to happen. Because what is going to be interesting with Lightfall is I'm trying to get guests for that show or shows. Lightfall is going to be 2 parts, most likely, and we're also accounting for when the raid comes out and everything else. So I plan on hopefully having 4 people on for the show, including us, for each episode, whether or not they're the same people for both episodes or not. And if we're lucky, maybe we can record it all in one day, but I'm not trying to force people here for 3 to 4 hours, depending on what's going on. But it's gonna be highly detailed episodes. Otherwise, next week we have an anime episode, 2 animes, so it's not gonna be 3 topics again, but it'll be the part 2 of Spy Family, as well as the final season, third and final season of Mob Psycho. Momo will be joining us again for that, and I'm working to see if we can get a fourth guest, but since it's only a week away, I don't want to promise anything. We might get someone, but we'll see what happens. And then, we got shit coming up for The Last of Us. We have Hogwarts Legacy, probably way after Destiny, if I'm going to be honest. But there's plenty of other shows going on right now, too. Attack on Titan's back, Demon Slayer's coming back, but those will be later on. Mandalorian's back now as well. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about pretty soon. I almost forgot. We're gonna probably go see like Ant-Man and Cocaine Bear and Creed 3.
Yeah,
So
there's so many movies.
There's literally a movie coming out every week throughout March and April. So in the span of this month and next month, there's 10 movies I want to say we'll talk about over time. I think this will be that'll be like a 3 topic episode where we just knock out 3 of them in one, because they're not going to be like too long each, but that's the gist of what's going on. I just wanted to give you all a heads up there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, ready to jump into Hi-Fi Rush?
Yeah.
So you beat this way before I did, and I just want to get the area of difficulty and how much you did out of the way. So for me first, I did it on normal, and I just ran through the main campaign, the main story. I know there was like end game content. You can it was like basically New Game Plus.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. How far did you go?
I played it on normal. I did a little bit of exploring to get some of the like life upgrades and stuff like that. And I would like to go back and do all the I forget what the special doors are called, but like in some of the levels,
Spectre doors.
Spectre doors, yeah. In some of the levels, there are these like doors that you can't open, and like the main character will comment on them, and they'll literally just say like, "Can't open it." So I guess we'll
come back to it later. Yeah,
they literally basically say like, "Don't worry about it for now." And eventually, like when you beat the game, they're like, "Oh, hey, those doors are open now. Go basically replay the levels for higher score, and also like you get to keep your upgrades and stuff that you've already purchased. So it's just like it's like way easier to get a higher score because you have like more moves unlocked and stuff like that. And the only reason why, or the main reason why I still want to go back and do those doors is just I really enjoyed playing this game. It's so fun.
It is
also
really
some
fun.
of the songs are like really catchy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So for those that haven't played Hi-Fi Rush yet, I guess 2 things. One, you could, if you don't have Game Pass, you can get it on PC or Xbox.
Yeah, I think it's like $30. It's absolutely worth the $30.
For those that it's from Tango Gameworks. For those that don't know who they are, sorry to sidestep there. They are the guys that did Evil Within 1 and 2, and the most recent game, Ghostwire Tokyo. And I think it was Ghostwire Tokyo, and that was like the PlayStation exclusive game right before they had like announced it, and then they got bought because they're part of Bethesda. They got bought by Microsoft and everything else. So right now it's like that game is coming out to Xbox later on, but I actually never played any of their other games. Like I haven't touched Evil Within 1 or 2.
I own at least Evil Within 2. And I meant to play it at some point. It's like I hear they're all really good. I just never got around to it. And
I still plan on getting Ghostwire Tokyo for PS5 surely for the fact that they did say they did a lot of Tempest audio specific things for the game. So I do, and I already have like Deathloop on PS5 as well. And if anything, it's kind of like hey, here's your last chance to play games from these developers on PlayStation before it's exclusively on like Xbox and PC. But it's funny that I played instead their newest game first before any of that.
Yeah. No, it's actually really funny. In the trailer that they showed for Hi-Fi Rush at the event that they like shadow dropped this game at, because that was one of the weird things is Microsoft literally was just like, here's a game, we're announcing it, and it's literally out today, and it came out of nowhere, and it's literally one of the best games I played in a long time, probably.
It's a
Interesting.
good it's a good refreshment after
Yeah.
recently beating Callisto Protocol, I will say.
Yeah, and like the trailer specifically was like from Tango Gameworks, the makers of Evil Within 1 and Evil Within 2. No, seriously, it is those guys. Like they specifically say that they joke about it because it's definitely a very different tone
It
to any of their previous games.
I mean the thing with like Ghostwire Tokyo too, even though I've seen a lot of like gameplay and previews of it, it's not supposed to be as horror oriented as like Evil Within, but it's still
Yeah,
more in that vein. Whereas Hi-Fi Rush is completely different. You wouldn't even believe that it's from the same developers, really. And
yeah.
it's from a Japanese studio, nevertheless. This is like the only Japanese Bethesda studio, if I recall. And technically now, the also only Xbox studio that's in Japan, if I'm correct.
Maybe, I don't know.
But I forget what the head of Tango used to be. Like she was the creative director. She left and started Unseen, which is the new developer that's going to be creating games in Japan. They're currently still recruiting, and I'm not sure what their project's going to be. I can't remember what her name is, but she's like really big. She's the one that came out during that one conference for Bethesda and was like, "Hello," you know,
Oh,
when they were doing
does
it.
sound kind of familiar,
Yeah,
but
when she was doing,
uh,
they were talking about Evil Within 2. And it was just funny seeing this happy like woman that's coming out for this horror game. It's just like all energetic and stuff. Uh, but Hi-Fi, the influence that I feel like when I'm playing this game, I'm feeling a lot of different things. Mainly Insomniac. I'm getting so many
a little
Insomniac
bit.
vibes from them. One, it's the kind of taking it easy vibe of Ratchet and Clank, where everything is just kind of jokish a little bit. You got a lot of sense of humor going on. And then Sunset Overdrive, which is also a very kind of like rock fueled game where you're just running around what feels like LA sort of, and it's just like, oh, everything's crazy, and you're just, it doesn't really matter with the story too much. You're just having fun blasting all these
Yeah,
different weapons and having a good time. And it feels like they combined both of those as well as like, I guess what, like Guitar Hero. Uh
a little bit. It was
and
interesting that it's like a rhythm-based action brawler, I guess.
yes. Yeah.
And like I like that you don't necessarily have to be good at the rhythm aspects. Like you don't, it's just that you do more damage and stuff if you hit on the beat to the music. And so you don't have to worry about being good. It just gives you a better score and makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, the if you
Yeah.
when the whole time this music is playing, and they got a lot of licensed music in here, and it'll even have like when the song changes, it'll show like if as if it was like a either an intro to an anime opening or a music video where it's like, oh, artist song, album, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I like that.
And you're like, oh, okay, cool, a new song's about to play. And you're hearing it, and when you're doing any type of attack, it goes along with the music, or when someone is attacking, it also kind of goes along depending on
Yeah.
like their attacks have rhythm too, and depending on that, it goes everything from, oh, I can block to the rhythm, I can attack to the rhythm. And if usually blocking to the rhythm is the only way you can block for the most part, otherwise you're going to get hit probably.
Yeah.
Whereas for the attack, if you do hit on the rhythm, you get damage bonuses, especially if you get like that last hit where it's got the little circle coming in.
Yeah.
You'll get like good, perfect, great, whatever. But depending on that, it'll increase the bonus of damage you do to an enemy, which is really great.
I also really appreciated how many different ways there are to track the rhythm in this game. So if you're just really bad at hearing the rhythm, and thankfully for me, by like the second half of the game, I got pretty good at just like feeling the beat, I guess.
Mhm.
But like if you press the like back button or the select button, whatever, on the Xbox controller, it instead of bringing up a map, this game, it just brings up like the rhythm bar, which I like that if you don't want to have that on the screen, you could just put it away. And like the cat 808, like it turns into this like little flying ball that like follows you around, and that pulses to the beat, and your health bar pulses to the beat, and literally everything in the environment like moves in some way along with the beat. So like I
Yeah.
love that there are just visual ways. If you're bad at just like hearing and following along with the song, there are visual ways to try to keep along with the beat, and I thought that was really nice. Plus it
Yeah.
just like looks really cool that like everything in the world is just constantly moving, and just this game, not only do I like the character, like every one of the characters, it's just the world is so stylish and interesting and just memorable.
Yeah. It really it took a very it surprised me a lot because one,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we didn't know this game was going to come out until it came out. And then two, you're like, oh, okay, well, it looks like an indie game from a AAA developer, so that'll be interesting. And you
Yeah,
play
I
it and
literally
you're
was
like,
like, well, I got Game Pass, I'll give it a shot, I guess.
yeah. And you just start going through it and you're like, the Senate, like the cutscenes for it feel very like if you feels like you're watching an animated movie or an animated show.
Dude, I was laughing and had like a dumb smile on my face like pretty much the entire time I was playing this game.
Yeah, because you're playing an idiot the whole time. It's
Dude,
great.
Chai is so fucking
The
stupid.
main character, his name is Chai, and he's just like this dude who has like this red scarf that's like really long. He dresses
I
up
love
like a
he
punk
applies for
rocker.
the Project Armstrong thing and the robot. I love how like bored the robot was, and it's like you like your occupation is rock star. And he's like, yeah, future rock star. And he's just like he thinks he's so cool.
And he's like, I've never played an instrument before, really. He's never
Uh
even like touched a guitar,
yeah.
which was hilarious. But uh he's fun. And the whole thing about him is like he keeps winging it and he isn't good at like subtlety or understanding what other characters are talking about because he's literally an idiot. He doesn't like get what they're talking about half the time, so he's not really listening. He's like these really big words, or even
Did
if, when he uses certain words, he has no idea what they mean, so which causes more issues. If it's like, oh, talk this person down, proceeds to talk to
oh my
them,
god, that was
gets
so
them pissed
funny.
off because he says the wrong thing, and he's like, oh, what is that? What does oblivious mean? It's like he's oblivious to the word oblivious, but he says it anyway.
Like one of the funniest things is like in between missions, you can kind of just like hide talk to people at the hideout. And you can also like when you go on the couch to select the next mission, one of the options is like hear Chai's inner thoughts. And he constantly is like, people seem to think I know what I'm doing. I should just keep going.
Yeah.
Like he's aware that he like doesn't know what he's doing, but it's like working. So until it just stops working, he's gonna just keep on going.
It's like it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's
Uh,
okay. Uh otherwise, you know, you get supporting characters that come in and help you out, but they're not only your supporting cast, they become part of your combat mechanics as well.
yeah.
And you know, the game when you're doing it's like James said it's a brawler, but it's like hack and slash. Like you get this like metal guitar that you're running around, you're hitting people with
I thought
it.
that was so cool that he has like this metal rod that just like attracts bits of metal, and it happens to always assemble into a guitar for
Yeah.
him.
I think it's probably from his own manifestation of like what he wants
Yeah.
it to be, and he's like, "Yeah, I want a guitar."
Well, I love like the like the real purpose of his arm is like waste disposal.
Yeah,
They give him like a trash disposal arm, and his arm he just uses it in like a really cool creative way.
which the whole thing is about creativity for the most part. Like each of these characters is has their own like quirk or unique like personality trait or fighting style, I guess you would say.
Yeah, like
And
Peppermint is super smart and she fights with like a laser gun essentially.
yeah,
Macaroon, and they're all kind of really smart, but Macaroon
except for
is
Chai,
like really, yeah, really shy but also extremely strong. He can just like straight up break shit that's supposed to be impossible to
he
break because he's just
reluctantly
that
will
strong.
he will fight
Yeah.
reluctantly, more or less.
um Cinnamon doesn't really like fight for you, but I just love that he has like a blank expression on his face because he's a robot, so he just literally uses his face as a like whiteboard and just draws faces
Keeps
on his
changing his
face.
emotions every single time. Yeah, just to be like,
Yeah.
look, I am emoting this. And then you have
And then like
Corsica.
Corsica,
Yeah,
yeah, like she might be one of my favorite just because I love her accent and just
it's
like
like a Scottish accent.
yeah, and it's cool because she like starts off as an enemy and she's like, huh, maybe they maybe those kids are right. maybe Vandal Industries is doing some shady shit.
Yeah. And, you know, each one, I guess to say first with like the combat with the main character, you're going through, you got that, like I said, that melee weapon, and you have everything from like, oh, here's, you know, light attack and heavy attack. And light attack, you can do like multiple hits a bunch of times to like hit somebody, and you'll get like the finisher at the end of like the little circle you want to do at the rhythm. Heavy attacks is usually like 3 hits or something. So of course, you know, heavier attacks, slower, but more powerful. And you can purchase from like a store that you get, which is also another Ratchet and Clank thing. You're more or less getting nuts and bolts. Like it's all
Oh
this
yeah,
like gear that you're
even breaking like
compiling.
boxes and shit to get stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's so Ratchet and Clank, but it doesn't. It's not like a full clone. Actually, it also has the grapple. It has the grapple too.
Oh yeah.
It's like Ratchet and Clank. Not against it. It's still. I love that they have it. Every aspect of this is fantastic, but you purchase like use the currency in the game to purchase everything from here's standard attack moves, here's special moves, here's moves for your part like your crew that help you out when you summon them for a second. And they have like a much smaller amount of like things you could purchase for them, but it's like stuff that still works out to help you.
Yeah. It's just like by the end of the game, once you have like most of those things unlocked, you can you can string together some really cool combos.
Yeah. And you just have to remember to do them, because otherwise you're just kind of like doing the standard thing and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, why am I doing this? And like you'll turn on, there's this cool little above your health meter is a battery charge. And when you do that, it kind of unlocks like super attack as well. And honestly, for the most of the game, I kept forgetting to press R on the keyboard to do it. I'm like, oh, right, I have this. And like I forgot during like the final boss, and I hit it and I just like KO'd him immediately. And I'm like, oh, yeah, huh, this would have been much
Yeah.
faster.
It's also cool that you can use, instead of like a pretty much all of your bar, you can use just like single chunks to
Yeah.
summon your characters for like special hits. And like some of those are really flashy and cool.
And another cool thing is you're collecting multiple different types of things. You're collecting your currency. You're collecting batteries that give you like that supercharge. You're collecting health, which also comes with different like amounts as well, more than I expected. And you're also collecting little like pieces, kind of like God of War, kind of like
There's
Ratchet,
like
where
Yeah, there's like
it's
health
health.
bar upgrades, like Zelda style like chunks where you have to like get enough of them and then it becomes like a full health upgrade.
I mean, it's like God of War on
Um,
it, older God of War.
I guess God of War too.
Yeah.
And then like I forget what the item was, but like basically something that gives you more of that like battery bar for your special.
Yeah. The super, pretty much
Um,
the super bar.
yeah.
And then you can also get little chips as well, that will
And you
give
could
you
get like
currents.
literally Mega Man style energy tanks for like excess to if you basically to refill your health later.
Yeah. There's also like actual mega sized batteries that you would get for your super too. So like if you're low on it, you could just press like 3 on the keyboard and it would like refill it a good amount, not maybe full, but it's something like I'd always try to remember not to use unless, oh, here's another one, because they don't really stack. So either use this one now and pick that one up, or if I see my like battery level super low where I might get like some new like smaller batteries, it's not really going to fill up all the way, so then I'll just like use it then. But you have all those, and then like I said, those all help out for your different combos of attacks and everything else. And then the other thing is chips, which like I said, you can collect chips and everything else. And that's a thing that kind of, it's like a passive booster for you, where you can keep purchasing slots for it. And you can also like each chip is like a specific thing. Some are oriented to your crew that can help you out. Some are just like other traits that are just for you. The one I utilized, of course, was the health one, where it replenishes more health for you. And you can purchase more slots for chips, which, you know, you can have 2 level 1 chips and each chip can go up to level 3. But if you level that chip up, which is very interesting. So if you level a chip up, you have the option of still only utilizing one of those levels in the slot,
Yeah, I thought
because
that
a
was really
level
cool.
2 chips will take up 2 slots. Uh,
It
and
offers
for
a lot of
me,
variety of like customizing how you want to like fight people and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
but still, like, because how much chip slots cost limits you a lot of which ones you
Yeah, I
want to
didn't
use.
experiment with it a lot just because it was
I
so
did not
expensive
either.
to level that up.
Especially for me, I kept using it all up on attack moves for all my partners and stuff.
Same. That's why I
And
want to like level or to do like a second playthrough just to like
mm,
earn enough stuff to play around with those chips.
yeah, I know. I personally, what I used, I ended up having 3 slots. I just did all 3 levels of the health revive because that really helped me out near the end
I liked
portion.
using the one that gives you like more time before your combo resets.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But there's that, and then like I said, besides those like standard attack moves and all the special like combos you can kind of do, each ally brings something to the table. And the interesting thing is, I liked it. Like at a certain point, you get all 3. There's 3 allies you get, and you summon them, and they're there for literally like 3 seconds, really.
Like a single move usually.
Yeah, and then they'll fly back out, and you'll see like they have a little like they have a little picture right below your health bar,
Yeah.
and
They
it'll
have
be
like a
like
cooldown time.
yeah, it'll do a full cooldown until you can summon them again. But the cool thing is, you can switch between them. So like you could summon one, switch to the next one, summon that one immediately, switch to the next one, summon that one immediately, and then if you switch back again to the first one you used, it'll already be ready to
Yeah,
go
usually
again.
their cooldown was pretty slow, pretty quick.
Even with that,
Except for
yeah.
maybe macaroon.
And it's funny too because there's chipsets that also like the chips will basically make their cooldown go shorter,
Mhm.
and you can upgrade those
It's
insanely.
also
So
it's significant too.
but it's their cooldown already was short enough, especially when you're switching. So it's not even really necessary at
Yeah.
the same time. But each one, so Peppermint does like a blast move, and it is really good for damage against enemies. You're just like you just hit alt like left alt as you're still fighting, and she'll just help you out. The other thing is each one has a specific purpose in
Yeah.
combat, but also traversing levels. For Peppermint, her blaster will take down shields. So it'll be like shield generator type shields because there's another shield we'll talk about in a second. But it'll be like this big old blue overshield, and I love that like it will maybe if it's a bigger enemy, it'll take a couple summons of her to take it down. But otherwise, once that shield's down, it's a regular enemy again that you can kind of do what you need to. The other thing is during regular levels, there'll be shielded areas that you got to summon her for to help you out too, and she'll like basically help you proceed with areas that way by shooting. And the other being Macaron, and he is like the heavy. His is breaking like I guess barriers. Like
I forget what the material was called. They
it's
gave it a
like armor
name,
breaking.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
like the armored enemies that have like thick shield, like thick armor,
it's like a
and
physical shield, like a
yeah.
wall.
So his is basically shattering that, and there's maybe doors you can't get through or barriers in the levels too when you're not in combat, and he'll basically take those out too. And the whole thing with him too is you have to make sure you get his attack on the when the little ring like when
Yeah.
you're doing a lot of attacks and like other things there's a little ring that's kind of going in and out, and that's when it's like telling you like, oh, go to the beat, go to the beat. So for him you want to get it right so when he does the punch it'll actually work, otherwise it'll
His for
like
some reason I messed up the most,
it
but
was a
yeah.
little in the beginning. It took a bit because you wait for that little like middle portion where it kind of flashes for a second, and I always forget that. So I almost hit it like a second, like a millisecond too soon. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh," but there's him, and then there's Corsica, who has like a staff that will blow wind and disorient enemies.
Yeah.
And yeah,
She was super useful because like she not only made enemies susceptible to being stunned
disoriented.
or whatever
Yeah.
and then she also could blow out fires because later on in the game enemies show up that like can set fire to the arenas, I guess.
And a lot of standard ones too that actually give you
Yeah.
fire damage.
And then she also can like uh I guess power up these like wind power generators. That is another platforming thing. That's why like one of my favorite levels in the game is like after you find out that like Kale has been using Spectra to mind control his mom so he could be in charge basically. and Chai goes through the whole, going through everyone, encouraging him throughout the game or throughout his their journey, so he could like break through the shield. I love the line, "I don't need a guitar. I am a rock star." And then he immediately makes another guitar. And Cinnamon's like, "I thought you didn't need a guitar." Like, yeah, but this is cooler.
Yeah, it's
And
nice.
then like they all like break through the window, like land outside, and they're like, "Hey, Kale, we got beef." And I love the whole, like, one, the song for that level is just, it's been stuck in my head for like the entire time since frequently since I beat the game, because I just think it's a fun song. But I love that you all are working as a team, and as Chai is trying to like platform through the level to get back to Kale to like just defeat him,
Yeah.
everyone is helping you along the way to like clear the path for you and stuff. And I love how it all like comes together at that end, at the end, like that.
Oh, definitely. Uh, I think having just so many options to choose from such a short game, it felt very strange because I'm not sure how long it took me to beat this game. I want to say it was probably between 6 and 8 hours,
Yeah, it's
most
not that
likely.
long.
It's pretty short. But I guess like if you look at if you compared it to an indie game, it's longer than an indie game, but shorter than your standard AAA, much shorter. So it's just that weird little like awkward point of like, oh hey, this is actually what older games from AAA used to be like in
It's
length.
weird. It does feel like a PlayStation 2 game, but like
It
a
does,
really, really
yeah.
good one.
And the graphics are fantastic too because it's full. It's the nice like I said, it looks like an animated show,
Dude, some of
and
the facial animations in the cutscenes, and especially the like actually animated parts, or that sounds weird, but like there's a definite difference between like gameplay graphics and then like cutscenes sometimes were like fully animated, like out of engine, I guess. I don't know, maybe not, but it just like I think that's one of the reasons why I liked it so much, was there's so much character put into just even like how the characters express themselves and stuff, especially Chai.
yeah. And the interesting thing is like
And 808, I love that cat.
you'll have cutscenes go through multiple different points of the game, but in between, like it'll do a couple different things. It'll do like a show character on screen doing something, but it's not like
Mission
cutscene,
report.
and not even mission report, but it'll show like the character doing something, and they're like kind of like mouth moving a little bit, but instead you'll have the text bubble with their face
Oh, those
doing
parts,
more of
yeah.
a talk there. So it'll be their face there with it still full narration, full dialogue. You'll be hearing everything. It's not like you're reading it only or something. And then other points, it's only that. So instead of having someone there, you just have like maybe you're in the base room that you're usually with your crew before you go on to the next mission. Same thing there, where it's just like the person there, but mainly you're focusing on the little text box with the character's head next to it talking. And usually that persists through the missions too. So when you're running through the levels, they'll just pop up there talking to you as you go through, and it's still like well animated. Everything sounds natural when they're all talking, and it's just really enjoyable because the whole thing is I'm really listening. I have my headphones on playing this. It's You're listening for two reasons. One, the characters are actually interesting enough that you want to keep hearing them talk. Two, the music is so enjoyable, and like you're going through the rhythm. You actually need to listen
Yeah,
for a
headphones
lot of
really help.
points, just because when attacks are happening that are very much rhythm oriented, when you're either deflecting or you're instigating an attack, you have to really pay attention to the beat. And sometimes it's not even watching. Like you could potentially, certain areas, do it with your eyes closed because you're just listening to the beat and you want to focus on that more than anything to get like the defenses down right, or like take an enemy down, because there's certain ones that'll like if you mess up, you have to do it over and over and over until you get it right.
Yeah,
And
those are
meanwhile, your
some of the
health
more
is like
frustrating
going
parts.
down and down and down. Yeah, there's some that are like difficult because you're like, oh, I just had it or something. And there's areas like because it has different versions. Like there's certain like I guess you would call them mini boss enemies that are just like they're not like the end of the level boss. They're just like dudes that have a lot more health, attack, And when you get them down to their like last little bar, they'll do like some crazy attack that you have to do a full like deflection combo to beat, which usually it's either like block, 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 but at like different points of like, it's not like just like you just do it. It's like block, 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 block,
Yeah,
block, block, and
the
like
ones
that
that
kind of
had like
style.
really long delays, I hated because I could never
Yeah,
get that timing on
you
that.
gotta remember because it doesn't even go. You're not watching it anymore. You're listening, going like, "Oh, how long is the pause there?" And you have to remember that for the
And then
attack,
at a
and
certain
that's the
point, they
hardest thing
add
to
like
memorize.
dodging to those like
Yeah,
routines, and I was just like, oh my god, it's like even it's so much harder.
yeah, because yeah, once there's like a full dodge thing, and that's a little bit more difficult, especially too, because like it'll be like block, dodge, block, 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 block. Then you're like,
Yeah.
wait, how long was that pause? And then you go in and like it's like 3 attempts later. Okay, I think I might get it now. Maybe we'll see. Meanwhile, I'm like looking at my health and it's like, oh, I fucked up like 3 times. So now I have like just this much health left because I kept screwing up. Uh it's annoying when you screw it up, but it's not like I wanted to throw a controller or anything. I'm just
It's
kind
only
of like,
really annoying because
oh,
like some
whatever.
of them you like you said, you have to get it like the beat done, or else
Yeah.
it'll just well, I guess I did a few times get lucky on one of those like samurai characters and just like actually dodge when they were doing their like start that combo move,
Yeah.
and you can do enough damage to them if you're lucky to kill them before they do it again. But it's just eventually once you get used to it, it's honestly easier just to like go through that like block combo thing and
Yeah.
just do it.
And the crazy thing is there's a variety of enemies they have in this game.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
lot where I can't even name them all. Like I could try to list them, but there's no like just you could look it up and see all the variety. And actually the funny thing is at there's a certain level you actually go through a museum and the museum showcases every single enemy type you fight. So
Yeah.
that kind of like helps you out going like, "Oh yeah, so these are all the different ones." And besides that, this whole thing is you're fighting in a giant like corporation campus. And besides all these like enemies that you're fighting that are robots, there's a lot of maintenance robots, worker robots, and all of them have these personalities. And you're going through the levels, and you can actually listen to their dialogue, each one practically. And a lot of them, there's like these dudes that are just like, "Oh man, I can't believe I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
Well, oh, I'm like really low on energy, so I'm gonna have to like my battery's dead and just like go like this." And each one is just a ridiculous set of lines that they're going through. There's little like
They're like
vacuum
surprisingly
box.
human for robots.
Yeah, and it's just funny because a lot of them just sound like hippies or some like surfer people. It's really funny. There's little vacuum bots that you can destroy, and I selectively would do it. It wasn't something I would always do, but I'm
Wait,
like,
you can
oh
actually destroy them? I know you can
yeah,
hit them, and every time
they'll
I
like
hit
run
them,
around and be like
they're
ah.
like self-preservation mode activated.
Yeah, you can destroy them and get a bunch of gear, like a
Oh my
bunch of
god.
currency and stuff. So I was like, forgive me for what I must
I
do.
always just felt so bad for them.
I felt so bad, and then I was like, "Wait, you can get gear? You can basically get money from them? Oh man, I'm so sorry. I have to do this now. I have to kill you, little robot."
It's like
Uh,
the Kylo Red, like I know what I must do, but I don't know if I have the strength.
dude, oh god, yeah. So you have all them. There's that's the thing too. Even with this, all these maintenance bots, there's so many variations of them too. I'm not saying like, oh, here's another one talking about a different thing. I mean like visually, model style. Like they do different robotic models, and there's a bunch of different ones, and it's really cool how fleshed out it is of like
I love the Arnold
enemies,
Schwarzenegger
maintenance.
ones.
Oh yeah, there's like Schwarzenegger enemies like get them right now.
Uh,
And then there's like yeah the samurai one, which I do get why people say it's the hard like one of the harder ones. For me, actually, let's talk about this right now. Not counting bosses right now, just talking about the standard like enemies and mini boss type ones. Which would you say were the most annoying or difficult for you?
Initially it was the samurai, but um I probably most hated, I think it was like the one of the smaller guys that looks like he's riding a bike or something like that, because
Oh,
he drops the shield
is the
generators.
shield?
And I
Yeah,
hated that shit.
yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
mostly
that.
because it was like it wasn't hard to destroy the shield generator, but for some reason the dude like that drops them, he keeps moving, and he was so hard to just kill because he would never stay still.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, it was at the very first samurai, and then once I got the samurai down, samurais were easy to deflect. I just
Yeah,
focused on deflecting, and I'd kill them fairly quickly. The one I did not like was the bird, or
I was
like
gonna
that
say
was the
the
difficult one.
Falcon dude is like the second, if not the
Because
number one.
yeah, that one was really annoying. That I had like a lot of trouble fighting that one. I do agree with the bike though. I think that, and then not the main flame mini boss, but when they standard like the standard regular sized robots
Yeah,
start
and they
getting the
just start
flame
like
and they all
throwing
come at
flames all over the
you.
place. It sucks.
Oh my god, that was killing me. I'm like, oh my god, that's like and the funny thing is it's just like, oh yeah, WASD for running around when you're on fire. Just like keep clicking those to get off of
Yeah.
fire. And I'm like, dude, I keep getting burned. Corsica, help me put out the fire.
At least she had a really low like cooldown, so you
Yeah,
could like because she was needed to put out those fires.
yeah.
So they kind of needed her to be able to be used a lot.
And then I guess we have 6 bosses we go through. And
Even the bosses were all memorable. Like the dude, I thought Rekka was gonna be my favorite because she was like the first one because I just love she's like this big like brutish woman who's just like I'm Rekka, I'm the best, I'm in manufacturing, I'm gonna destroy you. And then like everyone else was like somehow just as memorable as she was.
yeah, and I almost forgot about her because like I had a big lull in the game where I got through the first 2, but I like got halfway through the second boss and then I stopped playing and I got through a lot of like Hunt Showdown and Destiny and then I was like, okay, well that's done. Oh, I finished Lightfall campaign. I should really finish up High Five so we could talk about that. Um, but yeah, Rekka, you have Rekka, you have Zanzo, who's like this
I,
crazy
that
R&D
boss
guy.
fight was so funny because yeah, he's just like absurdly flamboyant. Like they used him for like a bunch of JoJo references because he's just like posing all over the place. But
The way you defeat him
I
is hilarious.
that it's one of the most unique
Make
things.
him use up his budget.
Yeah, because he literally he's just like, but he is so over budget that they're like threatening to cut off all his funding, and he's trying to race against the like his funding or whatever, I guess, to like finish building this super robot to destroy you, and you just like you destroy a bunch of his projects and make him run out of money, and so he can't just defeat you.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
like, oh, make
funny.
this bigger, make that bigger, and you're like, oh, you thought that's not big, and he's like, we want to bet, and he's just like, sir, the budget, please, and he's like, don't worry about it, I'll take it out of your bonuses. No,
Like
uh,
everyone hates him. It's so funny.
yeah, it was God, and then you have Corsica, who eventually becomes your ally, but you're pretty much mainly actually just trying to talk her down and like do a lot of deflections against her, which
Yeah.
is really
I love
interesting.
that, like you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I love that like Chai is actually doing a good job of like getting through to her and talking her down. And like literally the other characters like Macaroon and Peppermint are like, oh my god, maybe Chai can actually do this. I think he's actually got this. And then yeah, he just like proceeds to fuck it up entirely and just piss off Corsica. They're
Even
just
more,
like,
and they're just like, oh,
no.
so ridiculous. And then you have Mimosa, who is a singer who is doing like a concert, which is funny. This reminds me actually of, I think there might have been a little bit of One Piece reference in this because she reminds me of Queen from One
Hmm.
Piece, who's like this big, uh, like like a big head honcho of one of the warlords of the emperors of the sea, and he's also like a dude who performs and everything else. And everyone's like, "Oh, I love your concerts and stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, this is a Japanese studio. This is very possible that that could be a thing."
I can
I'm
see
not
that.
saying it's
If
like
they
a
did
direct influence, but I'm like, there has to be some sliver of Queen in here. I feel
I
like
could
it
see if
has
they
to
used
be.
Sanzo for a bunch of JoJo references, they could absolutely use another character for like One Piece references.
Yeah. And then which I have to be right. I know I'm right in this. Like I felt it and like deep down I know. But she's fun because she's also flying around, but she's also like doing a lot of music.
Yeah, her dress
Her
turns into like wings. It's like pretty cool.
and multiple backup dancers show up for her to fight, which
I
is
love, yeah,
hilarious.
dude. I love that Chai shows up as like the shark thing, which is like a
Oh yeah,
reference to
he
that
they're
Super
like,
Bowl
you have to bring him
days.
out left shark. He showed, yeah, so it's like the Katy Perry left shark, which was so funny. And he shows up there and she's like, "You're not on cue, left shark." And he's like, "I'm not left shark."
Yeah. I'm here to take you down.
And he's having trouble taking off the freaking outfit. That was so good. Then fifth is Rockfort, who's the
He
accountant.
might be my favorite fight
He was the hardest,
besides
I think.
maybe Kale. But like
The fact that he's a werewolf,
that was
a
so fun.
mecha werewolf.
Because like right before the fight, Corsica's like, yeah, I don't know. Like people said to look out for Roquefort because like something about the sheep and wolf's or wolf
A
and
wolf in
sheep's
sheep's
clothing or something
clothing.
like that. And then like you proceed to like challenge him to a fight, and he straight up just like howls like a wolf, and his just body opens up, and he turns into like a huge mecha wolf, and it's like Corsica, that was not that was not a phrase. That was real.
He's actually a wolf. And
Yeah.
you're like,
And
"Oh, I
like I
beat him." And
love
then he's like, "No, I'm not beat." And you're like, "Oh,
and
this
like
is gonna take longer, isn't
I
it?"
was not expecting them to use like Beethoven for a fight.
Yeah,
Like, and it wasn't like a straight up just a Beethoven song. It was like a modernized version of it, but it was like a really cool, interesting, like there's
very
so much
unique
variety
version.
to the music in this
Yeah.
game.
And then finally Kale, who's like the main boss, he's like the head of the company and everything else.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is like each boss fight is completely different, and some have multiple stages that are also completely different. So there's so much variety. There's so much like you have to keep switching up how you're fighting, what you're doing, and which ally maybe
Dude,
you're
I love
calling on
that
the
even
most.
like when you fight Kale, the fight starts with the 808 like beating the shit out of him.
Oh yeah, you're going for the
Like
view of the cat. That was really funny.
yeah, like I just like I love 808 comes out of nowhere and like smacks him in the face, and like Peppermint who's like behind another like barrier or something, he's like 808, yes, 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 get him.
Too excited.
Uh,
And the great thing about this too is like, I mean, Stray recently came out, and everyone was just like, "It's a cat," and everyone lost their mind. Like that's literally if it the fact that they just went, "It's a game about a cat," immediately sold how God knows how many copies. People just wanted game with cat. They didn't care what the game was about. They just said it's got a cat, and I get to be a cat. This game brings in this little robotic cat that is actually very fun to have around because one, a lot of the characters will talk through the cat to you. Like that's kind of how you've been communicating with them. And what's interesting is to know who's talking when is each character has a specific color. So if it's like green,
I thought that was really
macaroon's
creative.
talking. If it's red, of course they're talking. If it's like a dark blue, it's it's peppermint
Peppermint.
talking.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it has more of like a there's like two blues, and then there's like the standard blue when 808's just kind of doing its own thing. And it's like, I'm a little robo cat and I float around as a little like cat head. But then when we're stable, like one area, then I turn into a full cat again. And the cat's fun. It's just like it's
I
this.
totally agree with Parasololi from the Kind of Funny X cast. He says that like if not like some of the characters, like 808 should be like one of Xbox's like mascots from now on.
Oh, that would work very well. And like Hi-Fi, honestly, Hi-Fi has a lot of mascot power in general with all the characters because they're so colorful, they're so vibrant.
Yeah.
And Xbox, let's be honest, Xbox is in dire need of mascots now because their main mascot is a joke at this point and
Yeah.
is pretty much needed in very much need of retirement at
Dude,
this
like
point.
there was a YouTuber recently that asked the question, or I guess was asked the question by one of his fans, and then put it out to Twitter, like what was worse, like story wise, Halo 5 or the Halo TV series? And it's just like, oh man, that's actually hard to answer.
Yeah, could I just take the great journey now and just get this over with,
Yeah.
please? Like, I don't want to do this anymore. But that's the thing. Hi-Fi, I haven't played, so like I feel like the list of games I want to play that are like smaller. That I might be upgrading to the other PlayStation Plus soon because it's like on a discount apparently right now. But I was thinking like, oh, if I do get it, I'll play Stray, and I should finally go back and play Scorn. And what's the Rick and Morty game called again?
Oh.
Uh,
Oh,
you played
High
it,
on Life.
High on Life, High on Life, and then Penitent, that Obsidian game. So like those 4 games are, I feel like, are smaller games that I want to go and play.
Pentiment.
Pentiment, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
I started that. It's interesting.
that came out like last year at the very end, and it's like, oh, here's an Xbox title, and everyone's like, I mean, it's not really the one anyone asked for, but sure, and it's Obsidian,
Yeah,
so
it's
you have
so
a feeling it's
interesting
going to
that
be
like
good.
it's so interesting that like these random games that come out of nowhere from like just the studios that Xbox owns now are better than the things that we have been like expecting to see for a long time.
Yeah, and it's funny because all the big ones they announced, you're like, oh, where's this one? It's like, you know, it was coming, it was in orbit, it was showing up, and it's like, what happened? Oh, the asteroid knocked out of orbit, so it went careening into space, never to be heard from
Yeah.
again. And maybe it'll return one day in 20
I
light
just want to
years.
hear about Avowed at some point.
I mean, you know, you have Avowed, you have Fable. That's what I think. Avowed is kind of a joke to me now at this point.
Really.
I'm not saying like Obsidian, you guys are a joke. I'm just like, hey, we're making Avowed, and you're like, oh shit, this is like a Skyrim killer. It's like it's the Elder
And then
Scrolls
they bought
killer,
Skyrim.
and then they buy Bethesda, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, if anything, that means we're gonna get a Fallout game maybe from Obsidian. This is what I've always wanted. But
Eh.
instead, we're like, oh, so what's going on with Avowed? Great news. We're talking about some Obsidian stuff. Like, oh, what is it? Or here's some more grounded stuff. And you're like, okay, that's not Avowed, but okay. And you know,
Check out this RPG. Is it Avowed? No, it's Pentiment.
well, not even a Pentiment yet, but they're like, you know, they keep talking about Grounded, and they have like early access, and it like it's now fully launched, which I played it a little bit, and it's really fun. It is really fun. Um, then they're like, you know, you're like, well, what about Avowed? And they go, Outer Worlds 2. And you're like, I didn't even ask about that.
Oh
And
yeah.
why are you talking about that when this isn't even done yet? And then you're like, okay, fine, whatever. And they're like, we got a game to show you. And it's like, is it Avowed? It's Pentiment. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, where's Avowed? Is this a joke? Oh my god, it's so crazy how, yeah, there's like, they're working on just like 4 games, and the one everyone like, the one I really want to see is just the one that's now buried somewhere deep beneath the earth, and you never know when it's going to come back up again.
You also
uh
mentioned like the Fable game. I literally keep forgetting that they announced a Fable game was coming at some point.
yeah, that was funny too, huh?
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's nothing against Obsidian that much, just because like, you have to understand, Obsidian, of now all the Microsoft studios, Obsidian is my favorite studio.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they're fantastic. And then like, yeah, Fable is just, it's funny that they even bothered with the cinematic. That was a mistake at this point, because it's like, all you did now is destroy expectations, because the game never even saw a gameplay trailer or a second teaser, if anything. There's still that Rare game that's been worked on forever, that was like post Sea of Thieves. Hellblade, it's
Oh
taking much
yeah.
longer than I anticipated. Um,
Yeah, I want that game so bad.
yeah,
I
and I'm not
really
trying to
like the
rush
first one.
development. It's just the issue of, if you announce it, you have to be prepared with all the expectations you come with after announcing it already, never showing it. It doesn't really make things go better. It just makes things go, you're kind of getting worried a little bit, like whatever happened here. Perfect Dark is not even,
Oh wow, yeah,
that's not even
that
a,
one's not going well,
it's not
supposedly.
gonna, yeah, it's not a one you want to talk about. But Gears 6, I'm sure we'll get like in the next 2 years. I think if anything, they'll surprise launch it in the fall or next year, because they've been working on a 6th game, and we have to deal with all of Kate's mistakes again, because she didn't fucking finish her job the first
Oh
time, and it
yeah.
came back to bite her ass later. So we had to deal with all that. But yeah, I don't know. Meanwhile, Hi-Fi Rush here comes from the people. Let's talk about Tango for a second. All these other studios have announced like all these different games, and we're still waiting on them. Some have gone into development hell, some are just tight-lipped and won't say anything, and I get it. Meanwhile, Tango is like, hey, we just finished up our PlayStation game. Here's another game. And you're like, what? I wasn't even, you were literally last on the list because you just released a game last year. Like, you weren't even on the radar. You were like, you have the most leeway to be like, not thought about. Like, there's no expectations, no pressure or anything. Take your time. No, here's a game. We have it ready.
Yeah, this game
Also,
came out of nowhere, was completely unexpected, and it was fantastic.
yeah. Needless to say, like, I mean, Callisto Protocol, um, that was you know, we already talked, it was okay. And it came out last year, so I'm not even counting it towards this year. But I've so far beaten all the way, like beaten 2 games. And I really want to do like a dozen games this year. I want to do like 1 game a month at least. Or at least around like for each month I want to beat a game, something like that. And if I miss a month, then I'll 2 games the next month or whatever. Uh I think that this game has potential to at the very least be in my top 5 of the year, depending on what else comes out this year. And you know, God of War and Horizon are out of the way now. They're not gonna take up everything. Right now, the competition for this is like what Lightfall, which I'm gonna be honest right now, I like this more than Lightfall because the campaign for Lightfall was kind of disappointing. But you got like Hogwarts Legacy, Dead Space Remake, Jedi Survivor, Starfield, I guess. Depending, I
I
really,
keep
I
forgetting about
don't
that.
know. I really don't know how that's gonna go. And then like, uh, what else is that? Oh, Spider-Man 2. Fucking, that's probably the biggest thing coming out this year. Is probably Spider-Man 2. Uh, Other than that, like Hi-Fi really has a lot going for it at this point, and I would be shocked if it doesn't get some form of award, either as like an action adventure game or as like I don't even. I feel like they could put it. I feel like its score should be in there for sure. Like you can't not. It was like you're having fun listening to this, so I would be
Yeah,
shocked
there
if
has
it
to be a
doesn't get like
category
some.
for best, like,
There is for score,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's
God of War won.
or art style, like that kind of like. There's a lot of different things it could win for. We'll see what happens, but it's not a game I'm gonna forget by the end of the year. Like I'm sure I'll bring it up some point at the end of the year again. Um, and I would like to go back and do like more of the stuff for it. It's just one of those things where I still have to even go back to Ghost of Tsushima. So I'm not necessarily trying to play this again until maybe like a sequel is on the horizon. Just because like too many other games right now and still too much of a backlog. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Anything else from
Can't
you?
recommend this game more.
Yeah,
I just really enjoyed it. Even if you're like, I'm not even particularly good at rhythm games, and I still enjoyed it.
like if you have Game Pass, play this before anything else right now.
Yeah. And even if
Uh,
you don't, it's absolutely worth like the $30 it
yeah.
costs.
I mean, yeah, I would say just if you are worried, like, oh, I don't want to Game Pass, like, just fork the money down and just buy this game. It is worth it. It is a $30
Hmm.
game, and that is alone worth it. How often do you get like a $30 game from a first party studio? That is very rare at this point. Now everything's going up to like $70. So take advantage of this and play it, enjoy it. You'll probably get a couple playthroughs out of it if you really want. And it's worth every cent for sure.
Yeah.
That is it for Hi-Fi Rush. Next up, like I said, I've been playing Valheim, which I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about it because the game was bought for me by a friend because they're like, you really should play with us. It's really fun. And I'm like, is this like Minecraft with like Vikings? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'll try it. And I'm playing and I'm like, I need to build a house. I need to get all these weapons and armor. And I'm like getting into it. And I'm like, Viking World is really cool. And the whole thing is, like I said, it's like it's just like Minecraft where you're more or less building your town or house, whatever you want to really be building. Uh, it depends also how many players you have. You know, people play Minecraft solo if they really want to, but this was not a game I would ever play solo. I don't really like any of those games solo because if it's not with a bunch of people, I really don't see the point of it. So
Yeah.
right,
The survival game genre is definitely like more fun with groups
I
for
would say
sure.
it's like a survival build game more than any. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, but like I would say if you don't have if you want to play the solo, I couldn't recommend it because it's just not something I would personally do. But if you have a group of friends, like if it was just I would say if you have at least 3 friends that want to play this, you should do it. I think we did it. There was like 8 to 10 of us. Not always necessarily on at the same time, but a rotation where if I went on, there was usually at least 2 other people on playing it and you're pretty much like, oh, establish a base wherever and build it up. And at night, you know, creatures come and attack you, and you have to defend and survive. Get resources to build more, craft more, upgrade, and kind of evolve into the next age of development type stuff. Like you're going from like using just like wood and rocks to stone to metals and whatnot, and just evolving over and over and over as you get more, and also like defeat these bosses that give you buffs when you take them out, and you get portals eventually too that like kind of help you go from like place to place, because it's a Viking type game, so you're gonna have to build boats to explore other continents that have other resources. And it goes by, I honestly haven't played Minecraft in forever, so I forgot how it really is, but there's different zones, dude. So like different, I guess, regions of sorts, where the easiest is like forest. And then from forest it's I want to say swamp. And then it's like snow, and then plains, and then mistlands. And there might be one or two there might be like one I'm missing. But each different like biome, I guess you would say, has a higher difficulty. So if you're like like an older type of armor and weapons, and you go into like, and you're like basically at swamp level stuff, and you go into the plains, you're gonna get mad. Like a little goblin dude will be like, ah, blah, 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 and you're like, what the fuck is that? Chucks a little spear at you, and you're just like, basically you explode, and you're like, what the fuck happened? And it's like, you weren't leveled up for it, dude. Your armor is shit compared to the goblin that just threw its little spear, because the plains are like the second highest
So it's a
area.
little bit like of a fantasy Viking
Yeah.
settings. So it's not like
uh
just our world.
there's like these dwarves that are, they also look like goblin type creatures. They're like gray dwarfs, I think that's what they're called. So
Hmm.
it's like these weird looking like grayish creatures that also could be red and whatnot, but there's like each faction has like different types of units and stuff. But there's like gray dwarves in the forest areas. There's also like trolls. And when you're first really playing the game, you have like 10 people trying to kill this troll, and it's like throwing you around and killing you immediately. And you're just like, oh God, it's a troll. And he comes over to your like little like fort and starts destroying your walls. And you're like, oh my God. And then like you level up later on to where you're like, yeah, I'm going out into the snow, or I'm going out into the plains and fighting. And before that, you go through the forest and there's a troll, and you're like, let me deal with this motherfucker for a second. And you just like chuck a few, like shoot a few arrows, run at him with a sword, dead. And you're like, this guy used to be hard, and now he's nothing. But each area, like I said, it's got its own set of resources, own set of enemies. So you're gonna find some of the same enemies. Not actually, no, you won't. Each one has a completely different set. The only time it overlaps is, let's say, like, oh, all these are next to each other. You go to an island that's pretty big. In the center is a snowy area, and surrounded is like a swamp. But in a small section of the swamp, there's also plains, or like at the coast or something. So the swamp, which will have like Draugr, will fight plains goblins, and you're just like, oh, they all fight each other too. You're not necessarily having to fight all of them, but they'll still attack you if they see you. Not necessarily everyone ignores each other, but there have been times when I play and I actually get saved because two different factions will start attacking each other, and I'm able to like get away if I'm not like strong enough, or I'm really low on health. But it's a thing too where you're making sure you have to consume food because your health will lower from not eating. Uh, and there's so much stuff to craft. Like it goes from just like crafting for survival, that you get strong enough, you're gonna craft for cosmetic style. You're like, I want to build a nice, beautiful inside area with like good carpet and like trophies everywhere and weapon stands and everything else. Like I went from like this little hovel that it was called we all had we had all used like names that weren't like Steam names. You could have your own little character name in there. So some people were like, my friend Chris was like Chris Gar,
Hmm.
and it was like very Viking-ish. And then I show up, and my name is Big Baja, like Baja Blast. So naturally, I have a giant, I make this shitty giant house called the Baja Palace.
Is that why on Steam, like your name says like blasting Valhalla all the
Oh, that's
time?
on Discord. Yeah, no,
Oh,
I
that's
do
what I
that
mean.
because
Discord.
usually it'll show you like what you're doing, and I not everyone likes to show that. Some people just show that they're offline like 24/7. So I just put that there. So
Oh,
that's I'm just
that's
like, there
hilarious.
you
I didn't
go.
know you could do that.
Yeah, it's like your status, I guess you would say. So I end up like building a house, and eventually I'm like not happy with it when I notice everyone else building these like exquisite, like beautiful cabins and everything else, longhouses, and I'm like, my place sucks and it's covered in dirt. So I like demolish everything, and a couple friends like help me rebuild it, and it becomes like this nice massive place that is like multi-floored, has like it has like a basement, a first floor, second floor, and a third floor that's like half outdoors a little bit, where you can actually even shoot down at enemies from beyond the wall that are coming to attack. So it gives you a nice archery position. And I make it so I find like anytime I fought an enemy and killed it, I would take all the trophies for myself. Only if I killed them myself. Otherwise, if it was ones like my like allies did, and I picked it up, I'd put it like in our communal resource area. But I made my own like trophy hall of all the different dead enemy heads, and I even made armor hall and weapon hall. Like all in the main like first floor was like all the weapon stands and armor stands, and then the second floor was all the different like heads of the enemies I killed. And it was it's still glorious. It's
That's actually
like,
pretty cool.
yeah, it was really fun, and like we finished only because like we kind of exhausted the resources of the final, like we got to the point of like the final, I guess, like biome difficulty, and until there's like something new, we don't really have as much to do. There was like one armor set I was still trying to grind for. I was looking for like these snow caves, but overall, it's a really fun time. You're basically doing everything like I said. You're upgrading all of your stuff over time, building new weapons and armor, trying to evolve through the ages, and also defend your area, but also become very like self-sustaining, where you have your own like flocks of boar and even wolves and giant bison type animals that aren't bison. They're called something else. I think like locks, if I recall. And it's just, as long as all your friends are playing, it's such a good time, but it's something that it's really good, I would say, for like it's a good month play. You're playing for like a month with like 3 to 10 friends, and you guys go through everything. Eventually, you kind of finish it all, but it feels good because like you built like this place, and you leave it, and it's something you can come back to maybe if there's new content. Just like Minecraft, I feel like always gets some update or something, so that gives you a reason to come back, maybe, unless you're like doing your crazy world building. But I would definitely, like I said, I'd recommend it if you have a bunch of friends. Otherwise, it's not something I would do solo. But I had a really good time with it, and who knows? Maybe I'll go back in eventually just to uh finish the last armor set I was trying to get. I was like looking for resources for it, and it was killing me. But yeah, it was a good time. And that was Valheim. Actually, I realized there was one more thing I could talk about really fast, James.
All right.
Really fast. We got a little bit of time, but Hunt Showdown had another event called Devil's Moon, and it was part of like this Moon trilogy they did, and it featured a lot of stuff from like they've been really starting to implement like a battle pass for events now, and it's not too bad. Like this one, I think they finally perfected it. I don't know if you guys heard like previously. I think I talked about like Serpent Moon and another one before that. But one of the events, they didn't even give you a hunter to unlock. It was just kind of like you had to pay for the hunter instead. This one did like a half and half thing for you, where it did the free battle pass, or like the free event like progress, but then like if you get the battle pass, you'll get more rewards in it, just like kind of anything else. You know how that is, James? Like even with Destiny's season, there's like 2 lines of
Oh
content,
yeah, yeah,
the free and then like the premium. So
yeah.
you
Like
can
everyone does that now.
this one did a good job of having 2 hunters in it. And it's like, oh, here's your free hunter that you get if you get all 50 levels of the pass done. And then if you pay at level 25, you'll get this hunter, but only if you pay. So you can pay, basically get 2 hunters, which I thought was a good way of doing it and making it so now you have extra a little bit there, but also it gives you more incentive to actually get something. with money. Uh, the other thing being, what I wanted to talk about for this event was they brought in event perks. So you remember playing briefly, but when you survive and you level up, you have traits you can
Hmm.
purchase for your character. So they did 3 factions for this event: grounded, lunar, and infernal. And each pact, it doesn't mean like you're on a different team than someone if you have a different pact, but each pact would come with its set of perks. And certain hunters already were pre-assigned a pact, but you still had to like you get your event points from going around the map. You're like getting certain resources from clues or knocking out a certain thing that is like related to the event. And when you would get, I want to say 35 points, or you loot a hunter, you banish a boss. I think it was those 3 things. You could get a mark. And once you got 1 mark, you could then pledge to one of the 3 factions, unless you were one of the factions already pre assigned. Either way, the way you pledge was you would get a perk, and each faction had a different set of perks. And your hunter can get up to 4 marks. And once you got the 4th mark, you could get a second perk. So this is where it got really cool. For the infernal one, it was very like fire oriented, and that was because for this event they set the map on fire, and so
Interesting. Huh.
it's literal forest fire running through for certain areas. Not the whole map is on fire, but a very good amount. And it's a point where you're running through, all you hear is fire. Everything else is much more muffled. So now it's like a weird sound bubble almost of just flame. And only certain things you can hear a little bit. Other things are much more like minimized in terms of like distance. If like someone scared crows at a distance, now you'll hear it even less because all you're hearing is fire crackling and going around you.
Did
But
that lead to like more shootouts because people were less like worried about revealing themselves?
so here's the thing. A lot of the player style was you wouldn't want to fight near the fire, so they'd fight away from the fire. And then if you ran into the fire, there's a good chance like you could get away because people didn't necessarily want to fight in the fire because they were afraid to. The fire could still burn you. You could get set on fire like anything else, and then you could die from it if you don't put it out, or your bars would burn off. Uh, but there were instances where it was like me and one other person, and we'd go into like fights with like trios or duos, and go into the fire, and then come in and we just start massacring them. Like there was a time when like the map was, I think, wiped out and we did it all in the fire zone. It was just like in the middle of the fire. And we're just there like looting all these bodies. Like, I'm trying to find it, but there's a lot of fire here, so I'm having trouble seeing on the ground. It was crazy. But the Infernal Pact is fire resistance. So like one will be you won't get like health damage from fire if it's coming on or something, or your
Interesting.
bars won't burn away. So like you won't lose a bar, but you might get the health damage instead, which isn't as bad because at least your bar's not permagon. Other times, like if you get downed and you set on fire, you don't burn. So now your partner could
Hmm.
run, if your partner survives, they could just run away completely
Yeah,
and not
that's
have to
pretty
worry about you
huge.
burning. And then the teams will eventually leave and you can come back and just pick them back up. That's probably the least used trait, or the pact. That faction was the one used the least. Um,
Really.
I'll tell you, you'll find out. Next was Lunar. Lunar was kind of like the revive one where you can get revived with full health. You can also what was it? You don't get as much damage when you're downed. You don't lose any health at all, but you can still get burned and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much more like just health oriented. I'm trying to remember. That was really all it was. It's not important because these 2 packs didn't matter that much. And the thing was too, they each influenced an existing pact, existing trait, like Salve Skin for Infernal. If you're Infernal, Salve Skin would like give extra perks besides its current trait like value. Lunar would give for resilience extra perks, and Grounded was the main one. So Grounded, let's say if you had the Necromancer perk, which was the one that's already there. Uh, you get that, and that's the one normally you can revive someone from a distance, but it kind of takes off your health a little bit. If you're playing solo, you can self-res. So you go in, someone shoots
Oh,
you,
that's
you're
pretty
just
huge.
like, hey, and you just blow them. It's basically like the Barney getting thrown out of the bar by Mo and then appearing behind
Uh,
Mo. It's like that.
Wait, how
And
many
it's
times
worked
can you self revive?
as many times as you can until you're like, I guess, out of bars potentially.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but that's not, it doesn't, that's just one part of it. The first perk you get is called Death Cheat. Now, what that means is when you die and you have that, if you have just one mark, at least one mark, and you die and you leave the match, you still have that character. You lose all the items, well, on the all the weapons and consumables, but your character is alive along with all the traits it had, that character had. So all you got to do is get your bars back, but that character is there. And you could throw that character back in, get another mark, die. Oh, keep using that character, keep bringing that character back each match. Um, the only thing that would suck is like if you didn't have the mark in time, like you have to find 35 points, loot 100 or something to get that mark again. If you didn't, then you're like, fuck, I lost that character. And it would suck because you're just like so used to not losing the character anymore. Um, and then if you don't get out of the match by the time the timer runs out, then it doesn't work. So you'll lose the honor from that.
Mm.
We only found out from trial and error, basically, unfortunately, in that situation. Uh, and then the second perk for grounded is called Shadow, and you become invisible to NPC enemies. So you can run around. The dogs, grunts, all of them will hear you running around, but they don't see you, so they can't hurt you at all.
Even birds?
No. This is all enemies.
Okay,
So like,
okay.
for Beast Face will be the one that's like, oh, dogs and chickens and kennels and like crows and ducks will have a harder time like being alerted by you. But Shadow is all enemies that try to kill you now can no longer see you. So you can just run up at them and just kill them to your heart's content without any damage. The only thing
Oh
that
yeah,
will
that's actually useful.
only the bosses will basically see you. That's it. It was fantastic. So that one, it was so broken. Everyone was like, you just wanted to use grounded. And then there were some people that chose the other ones just because, you get tired of it after a while. Maybe you're just like, I'm too immortal. This is too much. But for me, it caused me to start finally prestiging, which means, all of your weapons get relocked and everything's reset. But you get like weapon skins each time you prestige during certain like levels. And so I went through like 2 prestiges at the very end. It was like last minute in like the last 2 weeks of the event. And I was like, damn, I could have just started the event with prestiging and I probably would have prestiged like 10 times throughout this event. Because the whole thing is if you get like a level 50 hunter and retire them, that's a lot of XP that you get for your like account, basically. So if you prestige, you'll get so much XP from that. It's insane. But I will say the event I think was well done overall in terms of experimenting with like uh hazards in a map with traits that are event specific that can really break the game, but also make it really fun and just like you're not getting as stressed out of losing your hunters if you're trying to like max them out. So it was for me personally, I really liked it a lot. Um I'm curious to see what they're going to do in the future because it seems like they're doing more events later on, like seasonally, usually like 4 a year. But also, they started doing like quest lines now that are like, oh, do like challenges and everything else. And they also changed it so like their challenges are more achievable at this point too, and you can actually change them and kind of skip one a day, which makes it really helpful. And that's how you get like points for like you'll get maybe some additional like weapons or you'll get blood bonds, which is really nice. So I think they're improving the game in terms of at least activity style and reward style. Not necessarily on the what you have to buy and get like buy with real money style. That still kind of kills me a little bit, but I get it. But that's it. I just wanted to do a small little hunt update there. Say Devil's Moon was a good time. I think they're on the right track for events like that. Maybe just do a little bit better for the story. And then I like the way the challenges are going. and the way they might have now story quests or like quests that give you rewards and whatnot. So yeah. Also more fire maps. Do like a freaking post forest fire map where all the woods are burnt and stuff. Cause that would be really cool. But that's it. Okay. That has been Sutro Side Talk. If you guys would like to subscribe on whatever platform you are listening or watching, you can. That would really help us out. If it is Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. That would very much help us out. If it's Spotify, please rate us. And if it's YouTube, give us a like on the episode besides subscribing. You guys should see there are thumbnails now for YouTube. I did that starting the last episode, and it looked good. And it got more views than previous episodes. So I think it worked. And I also am starting to craft my own Instagram promos that are less crappy looking. Instead of using Instagram layouts, I'm actually using Canva now. And you'll see this week, because I didn't actually put up my newest version of it out yet. I'll probably put it out on Monday. This episode is probably going out on Tuesday. But you can follow Sutro Sidetalk on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Sutro Sidetalk, all one word. And you can follow James on Twitter at InvaderJim124. You can follow me on Twitter at GoGoComzilla. And if you guys want to email us, you can at sutrosidetalk@gmail.com. Send us any comments, feedback, or questions you want us to answer on the show. Just know next week we're talking Mob Psycho 3rd season and Spy Family Part 2. So any questions to that, send them that way, or just send us via social media. And then Cut of Steel, we'll be doing a Black Adam episode soon. We haven't talked about that just yet of scheduling, but we'll figure that out soon. Like I said, we've got Lightfall, Last of Us, Ant-Man, I'm sure will come up soon enough. So there's a lot to get through. It's going to be a very busy spring, to say the least. That is for sure. But until next time, have a good one, you guys. See you later.
Thanks for listening.